You're listening to the Getting Social podcast, where we get social on entrepreneurship and everything that comes with it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Getting Social podcast. I am your host, Jeff Policard. In case you're wondering why I'm showing you my socks, did you notice that there were some rockets on them? The reason why is because lately I've been feeling like I'm just taking off. This is episode 10 of the Getting Social podcast, and I've been grateful for what I've learned in the past 10 episodes. And not only about, the technical stuff, the ins and outs of putting together a podcast, which I'm still learning, by the way, but most importantly, what I've learned from my guests and the knowledge that I've acquired and the wisdom that I've gained and the resiliency and the consistency that I've learned through the podcast, I'm so grateful for. And now, the real reason why I'm showing you my socks. My next guest, Jonathan Arias, better known as the Prime Minister of the Sock Ministry, has shown me a whole new appreciation for socks. Jonathan Arias is a lawyer, businessman, and family man, and his passion for socks has been a part of the building process of his brand, making it the perfect example of what personal branding can do for you. Let's go straight to it. It's time to get social.
All right, Jonathan, so we want to hear from you. We want to hear about your story. So take us back from Jonathan the kid to Jonathan the big kid.
My mother is Dominican. She came to the U.S. in the late 70s, as so many Dominicans did, seeking better opportunities, like I'm sure Jeff's family did, and most of us here in South Florida. We're really a city of immigrants. So grew up here and really in Homestead, Florida. There's not much going on. It's not the epicenter of progress and development, if you know what I'm saying. I had to escape my situation. It's so funny. This isn't a knock on anyone, but I was thinking about this a few weeks ago about how growing up, my measure of the greatest success that was possible was living in Leisure City, which is a small part of Homestead, and having a 3-2, like 1,300 square feet. I was like, in my mind, I could do no better than that. I couldn't do better, because of the struggle. It was just, that was the limit of what my imagination could fathom. And I was like, man, that would be awesome. Like, I can't wait. You know what I'm saying? I obviously want something different than that, and this isn't a knock to anyone who lives in that type of situation or who that's their aspiration. But that's the type of environment that I was living in. I mean, it's a community of immigrants, and that's what I thought was like living high on a hog. And so by God's grace, I got into the agriculture program at Southgate Senior High School, and that led me to getting scholarships. I got a full ride to Florida A&M University, and by God's grace, I also got a full ride to Michigan State for law school. But let me back up real quick. Why did I become a lawyer? I did not become a lawyer because I wanted to become a lawyer. I kind of became a lawyer in a roundabout way. So I started my first company when I was in college. It was a cheesecake company. And Jeff, you'll know what this means. The official long name of the business was Le Gâteau au Fromage, which means
cheesecake.
That's right, the cheesecake, right? And when you're starting a business for the first time and you don't know anything, the first thing you think about is French is fancy. So let's name it something French so that people will think I'm fancy and buy from us, right? And that was our philosophy. And boy, was it a crappy philosophy for a crappy business. Actually, it wasn't a crappy business. It just, you just have to take your lumps. You have to start somewhere. And often when you start, you suck. And we kind of sucked. And so this is my senior year in college. A friend of mine, a roommate of mine, was a beast with cheesecake, and his cheesecake was amazing. And people started requesting them. And I was like, hey, man, if you make it, I can sell it. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. We found commercial kitchen space, incorporated, got insurance, got website, got business cards, did the whole thing. And man, I learned my first big lesson in business at that point. And that's why I appreciate that business and I appreciate everything that I went through, because it led me to where I am now. And the lesson I learned there was, hey, people every day, they're screaming at you, they're yelling at you who they are. They're saying, hey, I'm irresponsible. Hey, Jonathan, I can't be trusted. Hey, Jonathan, I'm a very responsible. They yell at you via their actions. And the lesson for me was believe what they say to you. And I learned that, partnering with someone who had some faults, God bless them, love them to this day, but I had no business partnering with them. And I made that mistake on other occasions, but it led me to where I am now, to where it's like, man, you take your lumps, you reflect, you lick your wounds, and then you keep moving. And so that was my first company. But the reason why I brought that up is because after taking a whooping and the business essentially crumbling, and thank God we paid everybody, and that I kept my good name, sort of mostly. I was like, man, I went to the school of hard knocks. Now I need to go. I want to go to some formal schooling. Like, this school of hard knocks is cool, but man, can I get an MBA? And so I started researching MBAs, and then when I started researching MBAs, I started researching JD programs. And so I was looking at MBA JD joint programs, and sure enough, Michigan State had one where the business school was ranked very highly, and the law school was ranked lower on the scale. So my idea was to get into the law school and then sneak into the B school through the back door. By God's grace, I got a full ride, and fast forward, I never got the MBA because Michigan is freaking cold. In case you didn't know, Jeff, you went to school up north, right?
I went to school in Rhode Island, so I know what you're talking about.
Yes. I knew you went to school up north. I couldn't remember where. But yes, it's freaking cold. So the coldest it got, my first winter, was negative 33 degrees with the wind chill. My brother, that was cold, my brother.
You know what? I don't think I've experienced that cold. I might have experienced that cold maybe from a trip to Toronto. I remember a long time ago. But in terms of my college years, I don't think I've ever gotten negative 33 with wind chill. So, man.
Well, yeah. Guess what? Guess what? Neither have I. I was inside the whole day, my brother. So anyway, I it's funny because I thought about it. I had to do an extra year if I wanted the MBA. And it's funny, I didn't even think about it in terms of doing an extra year in Michigan. I thought about it as in terms of doing an extra winter. I was like, man, can I do another winter? And the answer for me was like, nah, I'm good. And then I also didn't think I needed it for what I wanted to do, which is start my own businesses. And so that leads me to me figuring out, why I'm here on this earth. And the reason is, so let me backtrack a little bit. When I was 13 years old, I gave my life to Jesus. I started a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. And everything in my life changed. And my trajectory has been directed it's been directed by, what God's plan is for my life, and what his word, the Bible says to me, and how I should be living my life. And how that it's played out for me is, man, I'm here on this earth, Jeff, to create companies that create good. To create companies that create good. Every day, Monday through Friday, and even a lot of times on Saturday, I'm working on creating companies that create good. Everything that I do has to do with creating companies that create good. And And just a little tidbit, a little nugget for your listeners. It's important to create a personal mission statement for yourself in terms of so that you know when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing or not. You run everything through the grid of that mission statement. But anyway, so then when I'm going to law school and thinking I'm going to go to business school, it was all for that purpose. It was so that I could be better at creating companies that create good. And just the way that plays out for me is I give money away. I give at least 10% of what I earn away, to missions work and to charitable causes. But that's just the minimum. That's just that's the jumping off point. The goal is to give way more than that, and then in addition to that, creating companies that are just benevolent. So when I was in law school, one of the things I did was I started a company called Cuts and Combos, and it was a nonprofit, and we would go to community centers and homeless shelters, and we would provide beauty services, so haircuts and nails and things of that nature. And then we would bring in speakers, because when you're getting a haircut or you're waiting to get a haircut, you have a captive audience, so people aren't going anywhere until you're done. So then we would bring in speakers we brought in the captain of police in Lansing, Michigan, and we bring in law professors to talk about policing and talk about housing and their people's rights regarding housing, and pastors to come and share the gospel, and so it was so that's my purpose, and that's why I'm here, and so fast forward to today, even the law firm that I'm blessed to be running today, it's still for that purpose, to create companies that create good. So that's the answer to that, Jeff.
Jonathan, to be completely honest with you, I am discovering things about you that I had no idea about.
Like what?
No, like the entire, creating companies to do good. I know you're a good person, you're a great person, and I know about your relationship with God. I know that you are you're doing great things, and you're using, just like I said in the intro, you're using your entrepreneurial platform to do good. You're trying your best to impact people in a positive manner and influence people, which is what it's all about. But I didn't know all of those details, and also how much passion that you put into this. I want to know, why. You said it in a way, but why did you choose law? I know that you said earlier that you wanted something that's more legitimate, but tell me, why did you choose law, as that profession?
Yeah, man. So going back to me going to law school initially. Well, first of all, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and once I recovered from losing my first business, the idea was, I would eventually get back on it. But then I started looking at it, and I was like, man, what kind of tools can I arm myself with? And an MBA was one of those tools that I was looking at, and then a JD was one of those tools. But here's the thing: it's you don't need an MBA to be a business person. Matter of fact, I would argue that most of the people at the top don't have MBAs. A lot of people working for the people at the top will have MBAs, and not a knock on people that have MBAs, but that's just the way I see it. So you don't need it in order to do business people things. However, you do need a JD, and you do need to pass the bar in order to do legal things. And I was like, man, if that's the case, then and if I really understand how contracts work and understand how agreements work, understand how mergers work, and man, if that can aid me in my objective, then let's do it. And so that was the big idea, Jeff. And really, it every day is a slice of that. And here's what I mean by that, is that every day I'm looking to arm myself with tools. Now, it might not be something as big of a project as freaking moving from Florida to Michigan for 3 years, then coming back, studying for 3 months straight with no breaks, and then taking the bar exam, and then study, and then I have I'm an attorney at that point. It may not be as drastic or as big of a project as that, but every day is that, Jeff. It's how am I going to arm myself today? So if it's listening to an audiobook, if it's listening to a podcast, if it's having conversations like this with people who are in a different area of practice and know their thing, you're a marketing guy. So it's that every day. It just happened to be that, in terms of allowing me to become an attorney, because I thought that I would understand business better. And then I also felt like it would allow me to get into rooms that I wouldn't be able to get into had I not had the degree. And I think that has certainly been the case. I'm a minority, and this is the way I view the world. Trigger warning for any of your listeners, but I think that there are a lot of interactions that I would not have with white men had I not been an attorney. They probably wouldn't associate with me in business or even as colleagues had I not been an attorney. And again, trigger warning, but I think no one will argue with me that white men hold most of the keys in this country. And just being able to be in rooms like that, I think has been a great benefit and has been an accelerator to me and what I'm trying to do while I'm on planet Earth.
Man, look, I'm happy you brought this up, because this is the Getting Social podcast where we keep it real at all times. So that's important.
Okay, so I don't have to get trigger warnings anymore.
You do not have to do that. There's one thing I disagree with you in one aspect though, and I'll tell you why. Sure. You said that no one can argue that white men, or I say white business people in general, or white people in any industry, for example, will hold the keys. I've had different conversations with people, and I've realized that not all of us actually see it this way, which is part of the problem. I think I don't even understand how someone could not see it. That's why I said I disagree, because it's a given, or at least we should think that everyone would agree to that. Our mission as entrepreneurs is to educate people and bring light into this topic and make sure that everybody understands that this is the reason why we're saying what we're saying. We're not trying to play a victim here. This is just based on concrete facts of years and years and years of oppression.
Yeah. If you allow me to just push back on that a little bit.
Absolutely.
So two things. Number one, you can live in a city like Miami and never really travel too far. Like the extent of your travel is, Naples and West Palm Beach. And your reality could be that, that it's not necessarily a white man, because I've traveled around the world, Europe, South America, all over the world, right? And you gain perspective when you do that. And certainly when you leave, South Florida, when you leave Palm Beach County, all bets are off. Maybe Orlando's a little haven, Tampa's a haven, but after that, look at who holds the keys. Look at elected officials, look at the business people there. And so I would say that, yes, if their reality is just Miami, or maybe certain parts of New York, or maybe certain parts of, other cities. I know this city, and I know that I didn't even identify as a black man before I left to college, and I really saw the world for what it was. Because in this city, you can identify as a third option, which is Hispanic, which doesn't make any sense for a myriad of reasons, which I don't have to get into at this point, but I am a black man. I understand that now, but this city kind of shields you from having to deal with reality because it is set up the way it is due to the history of the city. That's number one. But number two, I mean, if you want to talk about it, I mean, outside of Obama and then after Obama, look at elected officials on the national level. Look at elected officials, and at the local level in different places that are not named, Miami, Broward. And then just look at other things like how many black grocery stores do you go to? Jeff, do you?
None.
Go to any black? Right.
None that I know of.
How many black-owned or black-started cars have you driven?
I have no idea. If there aren't any, honestly, if there aren't any, that would be the car that I would buy. But I don't know.
But that just gives you. I mean, I could rattle off a bunch of other questions like that.
You can go into sports, for example. Yeah, specifically football, I would say, because in a league where I think it's 80% black or something like that, or 70% black, and then you have maybe a 1% or 2% of that are in positions of management and leadership.
Bingo. So yeah, man, that would be my response to an individual like that. It's just showing them, hey, let's just go through it, and if they don't want to change their opinion, then they're entitled to that. But it might just be out of stubbornness and not based off of the reality in our country.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that. And you're absolutely right. I think here in South Florida, we do live in a bubble. And I'll take it further. In my country, in Haiti, I'm basically considered a white man. And it's not only because I am light, quote unquote, light skin. I was given an explanation once by someone telling me that he called me white man. So I'm like, why did you call me white man? And he's like, well, because you have money, you have a car and you have a house, blah blah blah, and I don't have any of that. And they associate that with being a white person. And ironically, in this specific situation, he was a lot lighter than me. A lot lighter than me. And I literally went next to him. I put my arm next to him. I was like, who's lighter, me or you? And he still told me, you are. I'm like, shit. And so I'm like, this is deeper than just, what they see. It's about a whole like a concept and ideology that the white person, like you said, holds the keys. Let's talk about social media, man. Let's talk about your personal branding. Because even when we used to be in BNI together, every day you came in and you gave us an educational segment, and it was a mix of fun and education, and we always enjoyed it. And honestly, I felt a little bit of jealousy because I was I'm the president, and this guy is stealing my thunder every meeting. But we were looking forward to what we were gonna do every single time. And I want to ask you this question because social media is a major part of our society right now. And I want to know from your perspective, how does this persona that you created translate over to social media, and why it's important, especially with you being an entrepreneur and lawyer, and how do you use social media to translate that?
Right. So, I mean, I should be asking you the questions. You're the expert on this area. But, I mean, I'll talk about my journey and where I came up with the whole stock ministry and the stock ministry, the prime minister of the stock ministry persona. And so that's what I call myself. By the way, I'm getting T-shirts made. They'll be ready. They'll be ready soon. They're going to say, just have different stock ministry phrases on them. But basically it was this, Jeff. So I would look around and think about who was memorable. And as a black man, you kind of, you know about being invisible. You know about being invisible, but at the same time, like, you stick out, if that makes sense. You stick out because you're different than other people, but you're invisible because people don't acknowledge you the way they might some of their other white peers. And so I started talking with friends and in my own research, looking at, man, what makes people memorable? And for me, man, it's a thing, something about them. So this guy, Seth Godin, I don't know if you know him, but he writes business books. He's kind of a marketing guy. He has a bald head, and a lot of times in his social media and in his just things that promote him, it'll just be his face from the nose up, and so it'll just be his glasses and his bald head. That's something.
Now that you're describing this exact image, I remember seeing him, so I know.
Right, and you didn't even know his name. You maybe haven't even heard of any of his books, but it's like, yeah, I've seen that guy. Right, yep. Right. And one time when I was in Michigan, I think this had either she had green glasses or red glasses, and I was like, oh man, I really like your glasses, and she was telling me, yeah, they're not even prescription, but I just wear them because this helps me promote my brand. It's like, oh, the lady with the green glasses. It was a distinctive green, I believe. Nice. So just taking that with me and thinking about something that I could do that hasn't been done. So some business people, they're bow tie guys, and I had a few bow ties, but it wasn't really my thing, and I don't know. And then some people are like suspenders guys, and that's their thing, suspenders. But again, that wasn't. I don't know. And then I just stumbled upon socks, and I really liked it. And here's the big thing, is that they're low cost. And what really jumped it off, Jeff, is when I started giving them away to other business people. You take somebody out to lunch, right? You spend all told, I don't know, $40, $50, on lunch, and taking somebody out to lunch. They say thank you. They're appreciative. You treat them to coffee, whatever. You meet them for lunch. They say thank you. You spend $12, whatever. But that meal's forgotten. In about 30 minutes. But you give somebody a gift like socks. First of all, they're appreciative because it's different. It's unique. It's not something that they're used to getting, especially if all they have are black socks. But then, and this has happened on several occasions, they go through their drawer of regular socks, and then they see yours. Guess what? If they put on socks every day, and they have nothing but black socks, and then they see your colorful. My dentist, I gave him some popcorn socks, and every once in a while, he'll send me a picture of him wearing the socks, because it's unlike anything that he has in his drawer. And every day he has to look at his sock drawer before he puts on socks. Guess who he's thinking about when he's putting on those socks?
This is brilliant.
He's thinking about me, bro. He's thinking about me, not because of the great businessman I am, but because every day he just has to acknowledge the fact that, yeah, this red pair of socks, this bright green pair of socks came from one of my clients or, my attorney, whatever. And so that was the justification for it. And, and then I just, it became a thing where judges acknowledge it. I'll go into the courtroom and they'll say, counsel, man, I love when you come in here with your socks. Man, a judge who sees, I don't know how many attorneys a day, 70, but he remembers me. He remembers, Mr. Arias, what do you have on today? He'll ask me to pull up my pants leg. And so it's just something where I could wear it in a casual setting. I could wear it in a business setting. And it works. Whereas maybe like a tie, like if I wear a crazy tie, then I just look like a clown, And I couldn't pull that off with a shirt too. You can't wear a crazy shirt to court. It's just there wasn't another option. But this is something that really changes the game. And it's low cost. I've found different places that I could get distinctive stocks for a low amount. So I became the prime minister of the stock ministry, and I invented something, the stock ministry. And the big thing is we save souls, SOLES, and that was just a dumb social media thing. It's like, oh man, you're wearing ugly socks.
I disagree. It is not dumb. It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Well, praise God, man. But yeah, so I'm out here saving souls, and people remember that. They're like, man, I need my soul to be saved, and I give away a bunch of stocks. But think about it, Jeff. Again, that example with going out to lunch and spend $40, right? How many pairs of stocks can I get with $40? I could, I buy them inexpensive. I could get maybe like 18 pairs of socks, something like that. 15 pairs of socks. Man, that one lunch, which is forgotten, versus a one pair of socks, which every time the person puts them on, they think about me. It's just a more effective tool, and so I thought about it. Like, you send cards as a thank you. You send this, you send that, a mug, a pen, socks, bro, and that's just become my thing.
Look, honestly, man, I've always loved that. That's why I wanted to make sure to ask you about this question. It's brilliant, man. You're right. Every time the person will open their sock drawer, you will pop into their minds with a positive emotion. For real, because your socks are, you're not gonna, it's not a boring sock. It's a fun sock. So obviously it comes with a smile. So that to me always was a favorite of mine when you presented at BNI. And when I asked you how it translates over to social media, it's the same thing, because people on social media will also remember you for that. Because
exactly
that's unique, and also it brings a different dynamic to your brand that not maybe other people do it, but it's not your traditional, branding, and being the prime minister of the stock ministry and saving souls is something that everybody's gonna remember, and it's great, man. It's great because and you said earlier also that I should be the one, obviously, to talk about, how it translates over to social media, because, I'm quote unquote the expert. I'm still learning about it. I think we're all, basically apprentices and learning about the ins and outs of social media, because we are all influencers. That's one thing that I keep repeating all the time. We are all influencers. We have the same platform. I have a phone, whether it's an iPhone, a Samsung, or whatever, but it gives me the same access that you do on social media. And where we could use that platform to grow our business, we could use that platform to influence and empower others. We could use this platform to spread, horrible things also, which is, sad, but a lot of people unfortunately use that to do this too. But we have a responsibility and we have a duty as entrepreneurs to use it, in a way that can empower people. And I thank you for doing it and using it this way, because you are doing that, even if it's through your messaging, even if it's through giving away some of those stocks, bringing a few more smiles on people's faces. All of these things are great, so thank you for that, and thank you for sharing that. Now, with what we're experiencing with the pandemic, with social distancing, you've told me that you're still practicing at a distance. And I want to hear a little bit more about that, about how you're using digital tools to practice law.
So my marketing approach is different than a lot of attorneys, because I think more of as a businessman. I'm a businessman first, and who happens to be an attorney versus an attorney who happens to own a business, and there's a big difference between those two. But I was driving up to Atlanta this past weekend for the July 4th weekend. My brother lives in Atlanta. We went to visit him, and I just see so many attorney billboards And I'll never forget, man, when I was in college, I went to this thing called the Media Sales Institute, and I did it because I wanted to be a better salesman. It was basically teaching college students how to about careers in media sales. And I'll never forget one of the presenters talked about how there was this one client, and he would buy commercials, TV commercials, and he would put them on at the time that he wanted to put them on because he wanted to be able to watch TV with his wife and see his own commercials. And she was the presenter was talking about how that was foolish, and that marketing should be about what gets butts in seats, what gets people in the door, and helps you to make sales. And I often think, I can't get in the head of attorneys, but I often think that, man, with the billboards, some attorneys just like having their billboard out there. They like seeing their face when they drive down the road. Because I don't know about you, Jeff, but when somebody wants an attorney, I think that, this is my personal opinion, I think the first thing they do is they ask their network. They say, hey, do you know an attorney? I have such and such issue. If I'm top of mind, then I come up right then and there. The second thing that they might do, if their network says no results, then they go to Google and they start doing research, and whoever pops up at that point is the person who wins. So those two areas are the areas where I attack, because I've never heard anybody say, "Hey, I saw this billboard, so." And while I'm driving 70 miles an hour down the Dolphin Expressway, down the Palmetto, I'm going to write down this phone number just in case I need that person sometime in the future. Now, that might have happened on more than one occasion. I don't know about it. My experience and the way I get my referrals, and again, I'm not doing billboards, but I think that that's the way people search, at least in my generation. And so that's my approach, and I just want to be top of mind for those reasons. And then, in addition to that, I want to make sure that my PPC game is up to par, and my SEO game is up to par as much as it can be, because those are the places in which I've decided to kind of put my flag down in the ground and say, okay, I want to dominate in this space.
Well, you're right about that, and I think the billboard situation is a good example to maybe explain what social media does. The only difference is that with social media, you can always go back and check. Oh, I remember seeing this attorney a bunch of times, let's say last month, because you're correct about that. You're not gonna be like, oh, let me write down this guy's or this woman's phone number here just in case I get into a car accident next week, or if I get divorced next year or whatever. Or if you're thinking about a divorce, maybe you do it right then and there. Maybe you use it as a sign, like, maybe this is a sign. But
exactly,
you're not gonna necessarily remember this person or this attorney and to call them whenever you are ready to use their services. So that's a great point. And social media sometimes is the same. Like I said earlier, though, the difference is that you can always go back, you can save that information, and you can also look at that person's name or information afterwards, and then still look at what they're doing and see if it's a right fit for you. So that's the difference with social media also. And also, I think it builds credibility. Because if your social media looks, lazy and completely, unbranded and wrong information, and maybe their last post was like, November 2018 or whatever, then, you're not going to have the same amount of credibility as someone who puts in a little bit more effort. It doesn't mean that you have to post 10 times a day. It just means that you have to have some sort of level of consistency and also a little bit of effort to make your content be worthwhile, and for also to help, to educate, to motivate, and all that kind of stuff. So Definitely agree with that. And the PPC and Google side of things, that's exactly right, man. You already know the game. That's how it works. Legal services are services that people search for, and you have to be present on Google. That's for sure. My next question is about your next steps. I know earlier you said that you had some big announcements that you wanted to share with us and my millions and millions of listeners. So we are all listening.
My wife is in school out of the country, and so I went and I moved with her. She moved to Antigua, and I went right there with her to Antigua. We moved our family from South Florida, Miami, and we moved to Antigua. I had a little bit of warning, and I was like, man, I need to figure out a way where I could feed my family, even though I'm overseas. And I spoke to, by God's grace, one of my buddies had a buddy whose wife was in medical school, and so I had kind of an inside track on what things were like out there. And so in speaking with him, he talked about the difficulties that he had because he was a police officer before, and that's not a skill that translates overseas. You can't do that from a distance. You can't be a virtual police officer. So he was over there, and he didn't really have anything to do. They don't give work permits to spouses of students over there. So he was essentially doing nothing for the time he was in Antigua, and his wife was in medical school, and it caused a real strain on their marriage. So I had that motivation of like, hey, I gotta figure this out. And so I had about 8 months to figure it out. From the time my wife was mulling it over to the time I finally moved over there in November of last year. But the thing is, Jeff, I gotta mention this, that this was always my intention. It was always my desire, my intention, my goal, my purpose was to create a company that was totally virtual. But man, Jeff, I'm sure that as just like any business owner, you've experienced this. Old habits die hard, and sometimes you just end up doing things yourself because it's sometimes faster, sometimes it's perceived as easier, but down the road, it's not in line with the way that you want to live your life. And so, man, I began to basically think about things in terms of what are the things that only I could do. And, those things revolved around decision making. It revolved around creating relationships with business partners, referral partners. It revolved around things having to do with finances, and everything else in terms of being a practitioner. Man, I could divvy that out to assistants and to contract employees. And so that's basically what I did, man. I set up a system of contract employees, virtual assistants, and now I'm 100% virtual to the point where once COVID hit, like a lot of people were scrambling, like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And for myself and my staff, it was just another Monday. It's like, oh well, I guess I'm not in Antigua anymore. I'm here in Miami, and it was just another day. But along with that, Jeff, the thing that I said I was excited about was I'm actually in the process of writing a book about it. And the reason why the book is now kind of taking a pause is because I want to see how COVID plays out, because there's nothing worse than an outdated book. It's like I love, my favorite book to read are autobiographies. or biographies rather, official biographies, not ones that people just write thinking that they know the person, but an autobiography or an official biography. But the problem is with biographies, Jeff, for me, is that I don't like when they're written too early in the person's life, because well, you have so much more life to live, and I need to find out the inside story about that stuff as well. So I like it when the person's about to die, and okay, now let me write my biography. So anyway, the same thing with this book is I got to see how COVID plays out, and I'm writing the book as I'm living it. There's all the stuff that I did that got me to this point, and then there's the COVID thing, and so man, I'm excited about it, and it should be dropping this year. Obviously, the timetable is thrown off, but that's basically what I'm talking about in the book. And so what I think is special is that the title of the book will be The Underwear Millionaire, and so it ties in with the stock ministry being underwear, but it's really about how you can make millions while you're in your underwear. And now with us having Zoom meetings every day, we understand what it means to be an underwear entrepreneur, because you can be. I haven't done underwear on a Zoom meeting, but I have done shorts up, down low, and then a suit up top. so really, man, being an underwear entrepreneur, what does that look like? And so that's the big thing that I'm working on, man.
Yo, Jonathan, this is probably going to be another episode, because we want to hear more about the Underwear Millionaire. I think it's brilliant, and I would not expect any less from you, obviously. And I'm excited to know more about it. It's a new world out there. We have to adapt to it as fast as possible. I'm happy that you've actually gone through that process even before COVID hit. Because me, I was all about that. I was all about remote work. I do digital marketing. One thing that I really, really hated, but I had to do is could you come to my office and we'll talk about how we're going to do this and this and this and that. I'm like, seriously, man? So I'm going to drive an hour to come to you, get stuck in traffic, come into your conference room, probably wait until you finish your last phone call, wait and prepare a presentation for you, where we could have done it in 30 minutes via Zoom. And there's also other things that take up time. Would you like some coffee? Would you like some water? Sure. There's those little, things that you do, and exchanges that you have also when you're in person. Where in the Zoom meeting, the meeting is at 2 p.m., it ends at 2:30. You already know, boom, you log in, you log off, and meeting is done, And people would almost laugh at me. I was like, Jeff, come on, let's see each other. Let's be real. We're doing business here. It's not a game. And then all of a sudden, now we're forced to do all of that. And people are realizing how much more efficient that we are. And the underwear thing is funny, because I have done Zoom meetings in my underwear. So just put a shirt on, and that's it. You comb your hair and you're ready. That's it. So I think it's great that you're doing this, especially in the field that you're in, being a lawyer and being able to have contract employees and virtual assistants do some of the work for you while you're in Antigua or you're in Miami or wherever, you're in Atlanta, and that's the future. That's how you're gonna build your wealth, not having to exchange your time 100% for a financial return. Because you're building this entire process that will continue to operate regardless of the situation. So I commend.
And that's what I talk about in the book, Jeff, is that we're all hard capped at 24 hours. No matter who we are, we're hard capped, right?
Yep.
And so
that's it.
So people look at the bill rate of attorneys, whatever it may be, from $350 to $550, $600 an hour, and they're like, man, I would love to make that per hour. But at the end of the day, if you're trading time for money, you're hard capped, man. And that is not the way forward. What I talk about in the book is, instead of trading time for money, the underwear entrepreneurs trade money for money. So they create systems and make investments in their infrastructure and in people, so that their money is making them money rather than their time making them money. Because money is potentially infinite. If you throw more money at it and you have a winning system, then you're going to get greater returns. And so that's basically, I was just concurring with what you were saying.
Absolutely, man. And I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for the fun conversation and all insights that you've shared with us, man. It's been a pleasure having you here and reconnecting with you. I'm sure we will have, other conversations, and hopefully we can bring you back, and talk about The Underwear Millionaire when it's published or before it's published. And hopefully by then, the Getting Social podcast will also have the millions and millions of listeners that I keep bragging about that I don't have right now.
That's funny. Before I go, man, let me just talk about a little bit about my practice area in case some of your listeners might be able to use me.
I was just about to ask you how people could reach you and about your practice, so go ahead.
Sure, yeah. So they could reach, the name of my firm is the Onyx Group, so they could reach me at theonyxlegal.com and the Onyx Group Legal on all the socials. But what we do is we work breach of contract cases. So anybody who owes you money or anybody who you owe money to. So if somebody owes you money, then you want to get that money. That's what we help with. Anybody, if you owe anybody money and they're coming after you for it, then you need protection for that. That's what we help with. Now, our main area of focus is landlord-tenant law. And so, a lease is a contract. So, in keeping in line with breach of contract law, and the person who's owed money is the landlord. Sometimes it's a tenant after a security deposit is not paid, and so that's where we focus our area of law. But really, we work with lawsuits of all kinds. So if you're dealing with any type of litigation, hit us up, the Onyx Group, and we would love to help you out.
Thank you, Jonathan. Can you spell Onyx Group for us, please, just in case?
Yes. It's THE, and then Onyx, ONYX, and then the word group, GROUP. And the reason why I named it the Onyx Group is because onyx is a black stone. And I wanted something that represented the black community, and so, man, I wanted to build sort of on the rock of the black community and really represent that, and not be somebody who gets my success and kind of runs away with it. I always want to keep that forefront, like, hey, this is for my community. This is a black stone, and it's going to be unbroken. So that's the whole meaning behind the onyx, and that's who we are.
Jonathan, you're a badass, man. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate that a lot, and until next time.
Thank you for listening to the Getting Social podcast. If you know a friend that would benefit from this episode, please share it. And remember to subscribe and review.